I didn't have a job. I didn't really want a job at that point. You know, I resigned from the police. I was working on the sexual offences unit at in Newham at that time. Thoroughly enjoyed it, but on the other side, you know, I thought I couldn't really see myself doing that for the rest of my life. You know, I knew that there was more out there. You know, and I don't regret a single moment.
Hi, Justine. Thanks so much for agreeing to be interviewed for the Blue Light Leavers podcast. Really good of you. And there's a bit of a time difference between us, isn't there? Do you want to explain, tell us a little bit about who you are and where you are? It'd be great.
Thank you, Andy. Well, it's a pleasure actually to join you this afternoon. Yeah, you're right about the time difference. I'm currently working from home in Dubai. And yes, we are now 4 hours ahead of the UK.
Brilliant. Oh, amazing. And I can see the sun shining there as well. And actually, unusually, the sun is shining here as well. So there is. That's about the only thing we've got in common. I don't think the temperatures are the same, but we've got
not today. They definitely won't be the same at this time of the year. You know, we're high 30s, early 40s. So yeah, it's this time of the year that I think I'd actually quite like to be in England. You know, miss the seasons, but yeah, you know, it's not all bad.
Yeah, brilliant. Oh, you're very lucky. And what we'll do, we'll talk through how you ended up there as well. And if we can just go into your policing career a little bit and just tell us about, you know, when you joined and who you joined and the type of roles that you had, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, sure. So gosh, I mean, it's getting the old grey matter going a bit now, isn't it? 1990, I joined just before my 20th birthday, actually. And upon finishing at Hendon, I went to A District. I was at Rochester Road when it was Rochester Road there. I think that's all closed down now. It's by the Royal Military Police Barracks that used to have the mounted branch there as well. And then it amalgamated and became Belgravia. So I stayed there probably a good 5 years, I think, in uniform. Transferred then to K District at Plaistow, uniform police officer there for a couple of years. And then that was where I kind of found my flair, if you like, for investigations, and applied for the Divisional Crime Squad and didn't look back from there. Actually, I did a lot of the usual crime squad, robbery squads, burglary squads, all of those sorts of plainclothes roles. Worked with some fantastic people along the way, and did the detectives examination in 2000, I think that was, and did my trainee detective course on Hackney, Stoke Newington, Shoreditch. Worked in the you know, the normal departments that you would imagine on a borough, the community safety units, hate crimes, again robberies and burglaries, and also went over to the anti-corruption command at the Directorate of Professional Standards for a while down in Putney. Worked on the Daniel Morgan investigation, which was very interesting, although it wasn't one of the Metropolitan Police's success stories for one reason or another. It was a very interesting case because it was so high profile.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, Justine? Just if people aren't sure what that was, would you just expand on that a little for us?
Yeah, sure. So Daniel Morgan was a partnership with an investigations company called Southern Investigations. And if I'm not mistaken, they operated from South London. And I mean, it's widely published in the media, but there was dispute between the partners. Daniel Morgan was a partner with Jonathan Rees, and allegedly there was a dispute between the two of them. They met in a pub, supposedly, I suppose, to talk about the dispute. And that was the last time that Daniel Morgan was seen alive. He was somebody killed him by hitting him on the head with an axe, and he was found in the pub car park. But that was in the 1980s, 1985 or something like that. But following that murder, there were allegations of police corruption, incompetency in the investigation, all these sorts of things. And if, there's been quite a few people have been arrested, charged, not necessarily with the murder, but, with connecting things to the murder. And it's still one of the Met's unsolved cases, unfortunately.
It's been really interesting to be involved in that. And
yeah, it was very interesting. And I mean, it taught me a lot, actually, because obviously I'd only really been involved in borough policing, so your reactive investigations. And then, but this one, was a lot more covert, technical, surveillance led, intrusive surveillance, those sorts of things that I really hadn't experienced before. And the access to resources that particular department had was, it was phenomenal, really. So it kind of gave me an eye open on being part of a team and being assigned a task that only I was tasked with. And then obviously everybody else had their own actions, and then they all came together. You don't see it at the time, but they all come together. So we all had a very important part to play individually.
Yeah, it must be incredible to be involved with that. And like I say, just gives an opportunity to get involved with things. And that's the beauty of the policing, I think, really, isn't it? That you can diversify and different departments give you different experiences. And then obviously they then transfer into other careers if you decide to leave, mid-service or on retirement, definitely. So,
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I'm so grateful for the opportunities that, I did 16 years in the Met before I left, but I was so grateful for every opportunity. I couldn't say that there was, I enjoyed every single minute of it, the people, the work, the diversity, the challenges. It was a chance to, to apply yourself, mentally, either working individually. You can come up with an idea, but it was good that, we were all like-minded people. We all had a common goal, and it was great there to, share idea and pitch ideas, because nobody's idea is the best idea, right? It isn't. It is if you haven't got anybody else to talk to. But, in terms of how best to deal with the investigation, to strategize, what can we do, what could work, what couldn't work. And as I say, there was no, or certainly in the departments that I worked in, there was no kind of ego. Everybody was there for the common good, which was to support the public.
So why did you decide to take a career break then? What was it that changed for you, or was it just a decision based on circumstances?
Well, it was circumstances, yeah, but it wasn't my own decision, if you like. Back in 2000, I'd say probably 2003, something around about that time. My husband then was at the Diplomatic Protection Group, and he had always had some interest in flying. And around about Valentine's Day one year, I bought him this hours flight list, and he said, what, I think I want to do this commercially. I think I want to leave the police eventually and be a commercial pilot. And he said, I'm working at the DPG, I can finance it myself, so will you support me? And I said, yeah, of course, absolutely. So he did. He financed his own flying career, and then of course 9/11 happened. And he said, what, I don't think I'm ever going to get a flying job now. Nobody's going to want to fly now with everything that's going on. And I said, what, you've invested so much money that you can't possibly know what's going to happen in the future. At least carry on, see how you get on. And if it doesn't work, then what have you lost? You've lost money, yes, but you just don't know. Anyway, it paid off. He got a couple of flying jobs in the UK. And then an opportunity came for us for him actually, to work for Singapore Airlines. And in 2006, we left. At that time, I had 2 children, one going into secondary school and one only 3 years old. And we left, all of us, sold the house, and off we went to Singapore, where he was cargo for 2 years. And then, of course, 2008, the crash happened. And it was a kind of like one of those last one in, first one out. And at that time, Emirates Airlines were massively recruiting. And he interviewed for Emirates and came across to Emirates in 2006. And that's where we are now. He's done very well in his career outside of the police as a captain now at Emirates. And yeah, so I suppose, if you like, Andy, I'm the trading spouse.
You've done so well yourself. You really have, and we'll go into that in a bit more detail in a second. And but yeah, honestly, you know, reading through your career history, it's really, really impressive, and that must have been a massive bottle test for you all to decide to pack up and give it a go and just see what happens. It's probably easier to not to do that and to bottle it a bit.
I mean, look, everybody's got their own personal circumstances. You know, some people have very, very close community ties, family ties, financial commitments. But we were of the view that, let's go. If it doesn't work out, we're not fixed there for life. Yes, it's going to be an expensive, wrong move, if you like. But let's take the opportunity. The children were young. We were a lot younger then. You know, we weren't almost at the end of our careers, so as you might say now. But I just thought it was a fantastic opportunity for the children as well, and also for us. I mean, to be an expat. But you're right. Yeah, it was a bottle test. I mean, I didn't have a job. I didn't really want a job at that point. You know, I resigned from the police. I was working on the sexual offences unit in Newham at that time. Thoroughly enjoyed it. But on the other side, you know, I thought I couldn't really see myself doing that for the rest of my life. You know, I knew that there was more out there, you know, and I don't regret a single moment.
Yeah, that's a really exciting thing. And it's, and was it fairly straightforward to do? Because I'm assuming it was a sponsored move.
Yeah, so well, obviously every country is different. So one of the requirements of Singapore, or the airline then, was that they didn't recognise common law relationships. So although we'd been together for however many years and had 2 children, they didn't recognise that. So purely, it's crazy actually, but purely for a financial reason, we got married because obviously just to get the benefit. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that was definitely not on my. Well, it wasn't on the cards, but it was. Andy said to me one day, he said, "Oh, we won't be able to go to Singapore because we're not married." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, we won't get the married people's allowance, and you know, you don't get these flights, and you don't get schooling, and you don't get this, and you don't get that." And I said, "Well, hold on a minute, get your diary. What are you doing next Wednesday?" I'm late turn. I said, "Well, I'm early turn, so that's not going to work. When's your next day off?" Okay, well, I'm off on the 17th of July. Okay, then, well, let's do it then. And it literally was down at, I think it was Barking Registry Office.
All right.
No glitz and glamour, nothing like that. It was, yes, okay then, sign the paper.
Fantastic.
And off we went. Yeah.
That's incredible. Oh, I love that. Right. So you've moved, you've gone over to Singapore. How did you find that initial, that initial sort of transition? Obviously, you took your career break and settling in and you know, I guess re-establishing yourself within a community and that sort of stuff.
Well, I was really sad to leave the police actually, because it was all I had ever known since, you know, I was 19 or 20. But I knew as well that I was given a great opportunity in that I didn't have to work because, as I say, I had 2 young children, a 3-year-old and an 11-year-old then. And it just gave me, I think, the opportunity to stay at home, certainly with the younger one, during those kind of formative years, you know. Whereas before I'd been working earlys, late night shift work. You know, we were Andy and I we were passing ships in the night, and I just thought this would really give me an opportunity to be there for my children, and to be there as much as I could. And I was there. You know, there were so many things that I had missed in the police, sports days, parents' evenings, you know, these sorts of things, because I wasn't able to get off work on time, or got delayed at work. But certainly for the youngest one, well, for both of them actually, I was there for them, or for the first 2 years, for those 2 years that we lived there anyway. But Singapore was a fantastic place. It was a brilliant expat community. It's a very small island, very diverse population as well. Lots of, you know, the culture there is amazing. You know, and of course, then, you know, it's like the gateway to the Southeast Asia. So you were never really far from anywhere. And we used to hop in the car and go across the border to Malaysia, and 4 hours we were on a different island. And then, you know, we'd drive back to Singapore. It was just a fantastic lifestyle. And as I say, lots of expats there, and all the supermarkets had all the Western food. So, you know, it really wasn't that difficult. I mean, they say that Singapore is Asia for beginners, because it really does transition you into it quite slowly, so that if you were perhaps to go to somewhere like China or Thailand, or those places that perhaps aren't as westernized or more advanced, that you're kind of used to it. So no, it was great. I thoroughly enjoyed the 2 years that we had there. But of course, all good things come to an end, don't they?
They do. Well, you sort of hope not, but yeah, generally speaking, they do. But it's I've been in Singapore on holiday and on the stopover, actually going to Australia, so to see my daughter. But love the place, and it's incredible. Spent a few days there, not a couple of years, unfortunately. But it's so if we look at your career progression, then, because we haven't actually touched on what you're doing now, but we'll come to that in due course. But I know you started off, if I'm right, sort of like an admissions officer for schools type of role. Is that right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So of course, I came to Dubai again. You know, my daughter then was 5, and she was just going into her FS1, or the pre-K 1, or whatever you want to call it then. And I had a lot of time on my hands, and so I was quite heavily involved in the school. You know, charity, fundraising, that sort of thing, at the Parent Teachers Association. And got talking to the head one particular day, and the school was opening a new school, a new campus, and it was a different curriculum. It was an international baccalaureate curriculum, and it came up in conversation that he was looking for an operations manager there. I said, "Oh, you know, I think I'd like to apply for that. If you think that my if you think that I would fit the profile for that." And he said, absolutely, because he'd worked with me for a little while, or not worked with me, but he'd seen, you know, what I was like in the Parent Teachers Association, you know, in terms of generating revenues and, you know, monies and things for the school. Anyway, yes, I was there for about 3 or 4 years, I think. Started off as the office manager, in charge of the administration team and the facilities team. And it was great, actually, because every day, I know it's a school, but every day was different. You know, there was different problems. You know, the bus would break down, or the bus would go without the kids, and how are we going to get the kids home? And you know, just things just not running as they should do. And it was just, you know, I was thinking on my feet how to resolve those issues. And those sorts of things, I just did them because they just were second nature. But not everybody's got that kind of ability to think on their feet, you know. And I can't help but thinking sometimes, you know, that the experience that I had in the police, where you have to make decisions, split decisions, definitely gave me a good grounding for things that I, you know, take for granted. yeah, so, and I also worked there as the admissions officer as well. So we were responsible for the retention and recruitment of children or students and teachers. Yeah, so we went from a school that had, you know, probably half a dozen kids, right to filling up grade 7, which is, I think, is the first year of the senior school, within 2 years, which is a huge achievement, really, when there's so much competition of schools in Dubai. So again, that was, you know, being diligent, having to go through all of the applications and weeding out those students or those parents that were no longer interested, calling them, being, you know, you had to keep on, and, you know, so again, communication skills comes in, and having that sort of personality that you can sell the school. So yeah, so I thoroughly enjoyed that. So but again, investigations were always on the forefront of my mind. And I saw an opportunity there. Let me think, where did I go then? I went for, I saw an investigation post for an IP law firm, intellectual property law firm, who were looking for a proactive investigator to support their clients' anti-counterfeit programs. And of course, Dubai is a gateway for counterfeiters. We've got some of the busiest ports in the world, in free zones at Jebel Ali, and in some of the other Emirates, in Ras Al Khaimah and Ajman and Sharjah. And so the amount of counterfeit product or grey market products that come into this region is just phenomenal. And we had a healthy client portfolio there. So it was a big diversification across all industries. However, the reality was that the investigations that I was used to, you know, proactives, it was more online, open source searches, which, you know, I hadn't really done any of that, you know, and I found it quite challenging because, you know, counterfeiters are not going to say, oh, here, I'm on Amazon, come and find your counterfeits, you know. So it was difficult. So I left that job after a short while. I knew it wasn't for me. They would probably get somebody that was probably a little bit more interested in that sort of work. It was more office based, which was not what I wanted to do. And then after that, I worked for an investigation company, and it was commercial information. So again, it's funny. It's the same sort of thing, but obviously in this part of the region, the rules are that being investigators, private investigators, is not allowed. So you, on a trade license, you have to become something that is a service or an activity that is agreed. So it was a corporate information service. And again, but it was much the same thing. We would go out and actually physically go out into the marketplace and find counterfeits, whether it was a handbag or a brake pad or medicines, or mobile phone devices, you know, anything you could get. And, you know, we would have to then relay our findings to the authorities, proper report writing, evidence. So again, all of these things that you do in the background in the police, you know, you take witness statements. Well, we were the witnesses, if you like. We brought test purchases. That was the evidence. Presenting the files. Well, that was like doing your case files for the Crown prosecution, you know. And I think that also the language that you use, you know, the structure of the report writing, it was clear. You know, there was, I mean, obviously, it's not as strict in the Middle East as it is in England, with gatekeepers looking to make sure that you've got the evidence. But, you know, the principle's the same. And yeah, that we used to go to courts and get the warrants and assist whether it was the CID or the police CID or the equivalent of the trading standards, which is the relevant economic departments in each of the emirates. And yeah, so I stayed with that company for 5 years. I left that company for career progression. There was insufficient capital in that business. It was a startup. It was a startup when I joined, but there was no real capital behind it, no oomph, wasn't really going anywhere, and neither was I. And I was approached by Pinkerton, and I'd read about Pinkerton, years before, and was wowed, if you like, by their rich and diverse history. A company that was the oldest, or is the oldest, investigation company in the world. 170 years it's been going for. Started off as in counterfeits from a guy from Scotland, Alan Pinkerton, who moved over to America, and again found his niche in investigations. And in actual fact, and one of the legacies that he left behind was foiling the assassination plot for Abraham Lincoln. Wow. And that's where the American Secret Service originated from. When the plot to kill Abraham Lincoln was foiled by Pinkerton and his team, Abraham Lincoln said, "You know what, I want you guys to look after me wherever I go when I become president." And that's where the Secret Service originated from.
I didn't know that. That's incredible. I didn't know what the link was. I've heard of Pinkerton. Obviously, knew now they're massive and so well established, and incredible reputation. But I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, there's other little things that they've that they can take credit for. The board that you hold up when you face, and when you get your photograph taken, they came up with that. Lots of other things. I mean, now Pinkerton is a one-stop shop for a whole kind of risk mitigation. I mean, obviously we do executive protection for high net worth individuals if they want to, not necessarily because we think that they're going to be at risk of kidnap, but it's, a lot of our clients go to underdeveloped countries, and would like, they have meetings with government there, and they want to make sure that they're going to get there safely. So we have in-country drivers to basically take them around, make sure they get from point A to point B on time. Executive protection, protected services, where we look after our clients' resources to make sure that the resources are stored in a safe and secure manner. So we've got our own warehouse facilities. Again, we still do our investigations and due diligence, and that's run by our Pinkerton Global Investigation Unit, which works from California. So our office in Dubai has the overall responsibility for the whole of the Middle East, Africa, Turkey, and Pakistan. So you can imagine, we've got a real diverse area in terms of the whole of Africa is huge. The whole of the Middle East is massive, and all of the issues that go on or can go on, because of course, we are surrounded by other countries that are probably, not very stable. Iran, for example. We were fortunate here that when the Arab Spring happened, when Bahrain and Egypt and all of these other countries, the population started rioting, we were kind of waiting, thinking that it was going to spill out onto the streets of Dubai. But Dubai is a real anomaly, I think it's because the government here look after the people very, very well, that they wouldn't dare, misbehave, if you like. So my role at Pinkerton is as one as the operations manager. So I'm responsible for the whole of those regions that I just mentioned. We've got a team of dedicated professionals that do all the pre-employment screening, due diligence investigations, know your customer. Again, we've got a team there that do the protected services that we operate from in Abu Dhabi and also in Dubai. We also have a team of embedded Pinkerton employees who work in all different sorts of industries. You know, it could be in the nuclear industry, it could be in the tech industry. And so because we are experts in that field, companies come to us and say, look, we don't really know where to look for these people. We're looking for a neuroscientist or a nuclear scientist, you know, can you share it on your network? And so, yeah, so that's another element of what we do. So it's making sure that all of these entities operate smoothly.
And is that what your role does specifically, Justine?
Well,
as an operations manager, is that what you do, or what would your day-to-day role entail?
Okay, so Pinkerton has just gone through some restructuring. And so our business now has essentially gone into 4 different verticals. So we've got Pinkerton Global Investigation Unit. So all of the investigations are now done by those individuals. And the same with the pre-employment screening and the risk advisory. All of these different elements of the business are run by subject matter experts. So my role has changed slightly in the last sort of couple of months to become now more like a regional account manager. So I make sure that our clients are happy, that they're getting the service that they deserve. If there are issues, then obviously I'm the primary point of contact, and we try and resolve those issues. And by collaborating with or communicating with our Pinkerton Global Investigation Unit, we come up with new ideas of how we can support our client. Because, you know, if you're just waiting for instructions from a client, they might never ever come, because a client can only instruct you on what they know. And so that's why we need people out in the market to say, well, did you realize that you've got a problem with this product? You know, we're seeing it here, or we're seeing it there, or you know, did you think that you could take this risk advisory service somewhere else, or your protected services? Don't you think that we could roll out that program that we do in Dubai? Couldn't we do that in other areas where you feel that there might be a risk? So yeah, so it's putting ideas in our clients' head to make them think about things that they perhaps hadn't thought of before, how we can support them. And of course, we're always on the lookout for new clients.
So there's a bit of business development.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, business development, because the office now, you know, it as I say, it's gone into those different verticals, and those people they manage themselves very, very well.
And just for people who may not know about Pinkerton, are they global? Where are their main offices based?
So yes, they are. So Pinkerton actually, they're based, that the corporate offices are based in America, in Detroit. But we have a footprint in over 150 plus countries. So and of course, we've got our own careers page. So I would invite anybody that's looking for a career outside of the police, or, you know, coming up to retirement, have a look at Pinkerton Careers. There are roles all over the place, and, you know, for different people, different skills, whether it's in the UK, whether it's, you know, the good thing about Pinkerton as well is that if they find the right candidate, they will support the visas, they will support the move, as long as you've got the right to work in the country. If your profile fits or you've got the competencies that the candidacy requires, then Pinkerton is a fantastic organisation and to get you to where you want to be.
Yeah, great. I'll link to the careers page in the show notes as well, Justine. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's an amazing career progression, and it's really good to hear that you you know, you enjoyed what you're doing, and you loved your time in the police as well, and it's been a really positive experience all the way through. I think that's, you know, I love that. What I also love as well is that early doors, you realize that a career path, that particular job wasn't the right one for you. And so you just move on. And I just did a similar thing with a company that I was working for. I spent 12 months there and thought, I'm not the great fit for this role. They can find someone better, and it's not a great fit for me. And the beauty of being outside of the emergency service and law enforcement is actually you can do that, can't you? You can just go, actually, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to try and find something else, and find something that I really enjoy doing, and just, you know, take a little pivot or do a, you know, full 180. It's an amazing, you know, opportunity.
I think the thing is with the police, it was always a vocation, wasn't it? You know, it was a job for life.
Yeah.
And so I can understand why people wouldn't want to leave, because not many other jobs are really jobs for life, or to give you that sort of job security. So I can understand why some people might think, oh, you know, I'm going to stay, and even if they don't enjoy it, because it's they're in their comfort zone. But honestly, my advice would be, really, Andy, and you can probably concur with this, life is too short. The world is a very small place. I think if you're not happy in the role that you do, if you're not happy in your lifestyle, you're in a bit of a rut, there are plenty of opportunities out there for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely bang on. Can we just talk about skills and experience and how they're mapping across from what you've done previously into the role that you're currently doing, Justine? Is that all right? So if you can sort of identify some of the skills that you picked up maybe in policing that you're now using within the Pinkerton role.
I posted something, actually, I nicked something from a social media. Yeah, was it yours?
No, it was Joe's.
Was it Joe's?
Joe Crocker's put some great stuff out on LinkedIn at the moment, and
he's brilliant.
It's a brilliant post. Yeah.
It was, so I hadn't really thought about that until I saw that, and I think, you know, the police do get a little bit of a bashing in the paper, don't they, for being, you know, often called derogatory names, plods, and, you know, all these sorts of things. And when you think about it, you know, the police actually, you don't have to be the most brainiest of people. You know, you don't have to have a degree. It's just different. You're different sorts of people. The police need all different sorts of people to do the job that they do. And some people might have strengths in one area, and some might have strengths in other areas. And Joe put on that post, he said, you know, like, we're brilliant at analysing data or analysing facts to make decisions. We're brilliant at strategizing. We're great at communication. We don't mind confrontation. We work in diverse areas. We are confident, we are independent, we are leaders. All of these different skills that you kind of take for granted. And it wasn't until I read that and I thought, you know what, yeah, there are so many transferable skills that we do take for granted that you don't consider, actually. And when you think about it, yeah, all of those things are transferable. You know, as I said, when I was working in that school, you know, I had to make decisions on my thinking on my feet. Right, how am I going to get these kids home that the bus is left behind, or how are we going to get the kids up in the morning? You know, problem solving, yeah. And so there's all of these different skills. I mean, my report writing, when you kind of go into these kind of more managerial positions, you know, you spend a lot of time writing reports, proposals, cost proposals, standard operating procedures, all of these things that require good, solid facts to back up what you want, you know, articulating what you're trying to put across. And my report writing is, you know, it's just second nature now. You know, I know exactly what I'm trying to get across, and in a way that I'm trying to sell myself. And that's because I think in the police, you had structures, you had mnemonics, didn't you? So you know that if you you want to do a risk assessment, you follow thrive. If you want to do report an accident, I think it was soda pops or something, all of these different mnemonics to help you make sure that you don't forget any element of what you're trying to achieve. And that's the same in the corporate world. Just have a structure and make sure you've got it all written down.
Yeah, that makes sense. The as long-term listeners, or long-time listeners, I should say, will know that the whole transferable skills thing is a bit of a bugbear of mine, because you still got to be able to show that the skills and experience that you've picked up are relevant to the role that you're going for.
Yeah.
You can't, transferable. We're sold a bit of a myth around this transferable skills thing, that we've just got all of this abundance of transferable skills and these organizations are crying out for us. It's not quite like that. You've got to compete. It's a competitive market, and you've got to be able to show that the skills and experience that you've got are relevant for whatever role it is that you're going for. The selection process that you went through at Pinkerton, what did that involve?
So obviously I had to present my resume, and obviously I got help doing that. There's lots of schools of thoughts on writing resumes, but keep it concise, maybe to a page and a half, or no more than 3 pages. I think that would probably be too much, but you can probably get a good resume. And achievement, what have you achieved?
Absolutely.
And not
delivered, definitely.
Yeah, it's not all about I've done this. No, what have you achieved in that role?
Yeah,
so that was great, because obviously that was the foot in the door for the interview, when I met with our regional director and our operations director at the offices in Dubai, met the team. And that was a very low-key interview procedure, if you like. The vice president then flew across from Australia. He was working in Australia at that time. Had a meeting with him. Again, it's all very informal, but obviously you're being assessed. And some things are not that obvious. It wasn't one of these competence-based, give us an example of when you've done this and give it as, no, it's not that. They're asking you about your experience and seeing if you can actually fit in with the company.
Definitely.
So yeah, I mean, obviously I was very lucky that it wasn't one of those big HR ones, because of, I mean, obviously you would probably need to do a little bit work, but I'd say just be yourself. Your biggest brand is yourself, so know how to sell yourself. I wouldn't encourage anybody to say, I'm a police officer. No, you are a law enforcement officer that you're going out there to protect the public, and you do this by X, Y, and Z. You have to sell yourself, because if you can't enjoy or enjoy talking about what you do, how can you get somebody else to be enthusiastic about what you do or what you can do? So you need to sell yourself.
You do, and that's something we're a bit rubbish at. And I was
well, it is. Nobody likes to talk
practice,
about. Yeah, nobody likes to talk about themselves. Because you think, I'm a bit big-headed. But that's exactly at the time when you have got to be big-headed, because like you say, it's a competitive world out there, and you really do need to say, look, choose me, because I'm the best option out of everybody else.
Yeah, I can hit the ground running. I've got these skills. I think degree of humility, I think, as well. I talk about this in some of the transition training that I do, but having that degree of humility as well of in an interview, almost turning around and saying, look, I know I've got skills and experience that I can bring to the organization, but I'm not the finished article. There's loads that I want to learn. There's loads that I'd like to do and progress. And I think this organization is the right one to help me do that. And I think that's that degree of humility and that ability to actually not go in there thinking you know it all is a really lovely human trait. And that makes a massive difference. Yeah,
well, that was exactly what I said when I went to the interview at the anti-command complex, the anti-corruption squad. I said what I might lack in knowledge, I'd make up an enthusiasm, because I wanted to learn. But what I would say about the corporate world is that, yes, you've got great experience, or people have got great experience from the police, but sometimes they are looking at some more kind of academic based qualifications, and you'll probably see, you know, a lot of them may want a degree. And I found that as well. There was lots of opportunities that I saw, and I thought, oh yeah, I can do that, I can do that, and I can do that. And then when you get to the end of the job description, it says a degree is required. And so again, to support my transition into better opportunities, I did take a degree, or do a degree. I completed that in law and criminology a few years ago. Yeah, a few years ago. And I think, look, I didn't need it for the Pinkerton, but I definitely think that it helped me not to get the job, but it definitely has given me a different perspective on a lot of things. Of course, it's increased my knowledge base about certain areas that I didn't really have much of an idea about. And a lot of that was research based as well. But yeah, so I would encourage people that to have a look at, I mean, I did mine with the Open University, which is one of the accredited and recognised universities. It's been going for over 50 years in the United Kingdom, but there are others as equally as good. And just have a look, that a lot of them offer free courses as well. And if you find one of those free courses, then that's a little bit of a foundation, and go on and do something else. And you know, it's all modular based, you can do it at your own time. So I would encourage those people that haven't perhaps got a degree or a diploma to invest financially in your future as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. You know, that investment of excuse me, of courses or training is really, really important. What I would say is don't let it hold you back. So every role I applied for, I've been out 7 years now, every role I applied for has said you must have a degree. And I think if you've got some really good experience that you can put front and center, you know, on your CV resume, I think that's, you know, that does make a big difference, and people will forego it if you've got the right experience and you're a really good fit. But you're absolutely right. I think that further education higher education, and then you know, course specifics like project management, Prince 2, those sort of things, if you want to go down that route, are really important to invest in. Definitely. No, it's brilliant. Thank you for that. But incredible. What a great story. Oh, just amazing. And I love what you've done. And you know, I say this because I'm always gobsmacked by the people I speak to. I'm very privileged, and you should be really proud of what you've done. It's incredible.
I just think, you know, I've just been very lucky. When I look back at,
you haven't been lucky. You've worked hard for it. You've done some amazing things.
I know you're right. I know I'm a little bit modest, but from when I look back, Andy, to my background, you know, council house kid from Essex, divorced parents, you know, low income, left school with, I think, 1 O-level, and that was in religious education. I wasted my school years. I didn't have the discipline then, and it wasn't until I got when I went into the police, I thought, you know what a waste of my education. And then it was when I was in the police, I started thinking, you know what, I need to continuously develop, and you know, I'd been out of the academic arena for such a long time that I started off just doing GCSEs, 1 or 2 here every other year, psychology, biology, you know, law. And I enjoyed it, but I thought, you know, I need to just step it up a bit. So, yeah, I think, you know, I have worked for it. You're right. I have worked for it, and I should, you know, acknowledge that. So yeah, I should stop beating myself up and putting myself down, shouldn't I?
We all do it. Yeah. Absolute pleasure talking to you. Real joy. Thank you so much for your time, Justine. It's brilliant, and a great story. Andy. And I know it will make a big difference to a lot of people. So.
Well, I hope so. Look, and if anybody wants any advice anywhere, just look me up on LinkedIn, and I'd be happy just to point you in the right direction, or guide you, or just to say hello. It's been a pleasure, Andy. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Justine. Thank you. I really hope you enjoyed that episode with Justine. It was lovely talking to her, and what a great story. And I particularly thought the wedding was amazing. So if you like what you heard, then please leave a review. You go to Apple or Spotify and leave a review there. I'd really appreciate it, because the more reviews and the more comments that are made, then the more people get sight of this, and I get an opportunity to listen to it. Don't forget, you can also join the private Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/blue light leavers. And don't forget, you can also do some free tech training as well. So if you go to bluelightlevers.com/with-you-with-me, you get an opportunity to do free personality and skills profiling. And they're offering free courses, free tech courses, so you can actually train and reskill and get a career within the tech industry, be it cyber or project management, whatever it might be, all for free. So that's bluelightlevers.com/with-you-with-me. As always, massive thanks to Sam from Right Rule Audio for helping me out here and doing all the editing. And we're really looking forward to speaking to you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye for now.